Welcome to another Junior Developer Happy Hour. And Sam and I are the hosts of this meeting. We started a couple months back. It's probably about 5 months at this point. That number keeps changing. Imagine that. So we recognize that, especially during all of the freezes and when a bunch of companies started putting hiring freezes and actually actively laying people off, that it was going to make things much more complicated, much more challenging for people trying to break into the industry. And we both wanted to do whatever we could in our small part to try to help people out who are trying to break in, because it is a challenge to get that first job in tech. And there's a lot of questions that I know we both had on our own journeys trying to get into tech. So that's what this is. This is an AMA style Ask Me Anything. So you can post questions. The best place to put your questions for Danny and for us to answer, I will be posting it here in the Zoom chat right now. That is the link to our Slido. And that's the best place because you can then upvote, and we can make sure that we're keeping track and asking really prioritizing the best, not the best questions, the questions that the most people are interested in hearing. So upvote those questions that you would really like us to answer. And then if there are follow-up questions, or if there are things like follow-up links to resources that we're talking about, we'll try to get those into the chat right here in Zoom. And if you stick around to the end, we typically stop recording and invite people to come off of mute, and we can have more of a conversation with the people and with anyone who is still around at that point who wants to introduce themselves and do some more talking in real time. I think that's about it. So I skipped over my intro. I'm Brady. I'm a software engineer at Nordstrom. I went to Dev Bootcamp when it was still in business, right after it had been acquired by Kaplan back in 2017, and then got hired on at a company called Trunk Club. They were like a mid-size startup who had already been acquired by Nordstrom at the time that when I started working, but just in June is when they fully absorbed us into their company. So Nordstrom as its separate entity doesn't exist anymore. And now did I say Nordstrom? Trunk Club. It doesn't exist anymore. And now I'm a Nordstrom employee. I've been working mostly as a front end dev for the past year or so. So like TypeScript, JavaScript. Our backend is in Ruby, but I haven't been doing a ton of work recently on backend. So that's it about me. I'll let Sam give his intro, and then we can pass it off to our special guest.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Sam. If you look at my LinkedIn, it says Steven. That's my real name, but I go by Sam. Here's my LinkedIn, by the way. I posted it in the chat if anybody wants to connect. Sam is my initials. Yeah, my parents planned it like that. It's kind of confusing, but that's what it is. I work at Lyft. I'm a front-end engineer building internal tools for the mapping organization. We use React, TypeScript, Node.js, main technologies in our stack. And I have a long journey that it took to get here. I graduated a long time ago. I actually have a computer science degree too. I graduated back in the dot-com bust, and I gave up looking for a job too quick. It was hard back then as well during the dot-com bust in Hawaii, especially. And I didn't have any mentors. The internet was still kind of young. There wasn't a lot of resources to like network with people, and I just gave up. I thought I wasn't meant to program. So I worked in the mortgage industry for a while, and then that blew up 2008. So I just left America. I joined the Peace Corps. I went to live in West Africa for 3 years. While I was there, I learned about these new boot camps that were a thing now. And I always liked tech, so I saw that as a way back in. I went to Dev Bootcamp in 2013 and worked my way all the way up to Lyft. So that's where I am now. And let's get Danny going. He's our special guest this week, Danny Thompson. Maybe just give intro, whatever you want to talk about. Also, if you could also include like some information about LaunchCode, I think that can help the questions about that as well.
So as being a new JDHH member, is your goal to have me give a talk or is your goal to have me answer questions? I can do either one. I have talks that I give at boot camps and companies all over the world, but I don't know what you prefer here.
Usually we do questions. So
Okay.
just
Sure.
maybe you can do a short version of a talk if you want, just
Whatever
to
you
help
want.
help people give generate questions. We got a few questions coming in, but usually after people give the intros and then you start answering questions, like more questions keep coming out of like while the conversation keeps going.
Sure.
So
I'll do
yeah.
a short little thing that I do for some places and let you all that don't know about me find out about me. So I am Danny Thompson. I am a software engineer. I am a community leader with the group GDG Memphis. I'm the founder of that group. And we started out as a small group and now we are one of the largest groups in Memphis, Tennessee that help developers get resources, learn how to code, have a community to fall back on, and just a regular support system. And I also have helped over 70 developers land their first jobs in tech. And my background is I spent over 10 years frying chicken in a gas station. And I started working in gas stations, and that was pretty much my ceiling. That is exactly where I thought I was going to be for the rest of my life. At the age of 30, I found myself at a fork in the road where if I went right, I was going to work in this gas station until the day I died. And if I went left, I would have to make a change. I didn't know what it was, but it would have to be something. And at this time in my life where I'm getting this change, my son was just born, I was working over 80 hours a week and I was making just enough money to still be broke. And I saw this interview and this rapper invested several $1,000,000 into a tech company. And he was asked, why did you invest this money into a tech company? And he said he's learning how to code. Now, this blew my mind because I never knew someone from my kind of background that grew up in my kind of area could ever learn how to code. For me, I always believed that the developers of the world were the PhDs and the rocket scientists of the world. There was no average individual ever working in such a field like this. And so he said he's learning how to code. Now, obviously, he's a rapper. He's not about to give up this illustrious rap career to become a software dev. That's not happening here. So you're investing $7 million, and why? And the reasoning was profound. He said, why wouldn't you want to know how the thing that you touch 90% out of your day operates? Like, I have a basic understanding of my body. If I'm sick, I know, oh, I'm not going to make it. I need to go see a doctor. Or I could ride this out. I'll drink some Robitussin and I'll be A-okay. Or if I'm driving my car, I'm like, oh, that's not a normal sound. I need to take this to a specialist. So why don't I have the same level of understanding with this computer? Like, why is the limit of my understanding opening youtube.com and watching cat videos? Like, why don't I understand how this operates? Why don't I understand why my laptop costs $2,800 or my smartphone costs $1,500? Like, why can't I make the programs that I use? Why can't I make these websites? So he starts learning how to code, and so do I. I get on freecodecamp.org. And I start making code. And I heard about this thing called meetups, and I didn't know what it was. And I looked up online, and Memphis had one. And I walk in this meetup, and at this time in my life, I know HTML and CSS. I thought the world pretty much began and ended at JavaScript. And I made this application where you enter the URL of an image, and it returns that image with like some coloring on top. It's like a really, really, really bad filter. But it's safe to say at this point in my life, I could cure cancer with code. I'm that good. I was terrible. But I walked in this meetup and I very quickly realized that I don't know shit. I don't know stuff. I don't know anything. And everyone's speaking like these foreign languages to me. They're saying like Java, C# and SQL. And I don't know what any of this means, but now I'm hooked. I've been introduced to this brand new breadth of knowledge that I didn't know existed. But I very quickly realized that I'm excluded from the conversation. And I said, I will never be excluded again. So I go home and I start studying and I start learning about JavaScript and I start learning about ES6 functions. And I go to that next meetup. I'm like, do you know what an error function is? Do you know how to do this in ES6? And I go home and I start studying more and I start learning about SQL. And I go to that next meetup. I'm like, do you know about SQL functions? Do you know how to do a SQL table? Do you know how to do a SQL query? And I go home and I start studying more and I start learning about Java. And I go home and I said, do you know about Spring Boot? Do you know about this Spring framework? And now I'm included in this phenomenal community of developers that are only there because they want to meet each other and grow together. And it wasn't that I was excluded in the beginning, but I thought I was because I just didn't know anything to bring some valuable pieces to that conversation. But I asked the one question that everybody asks when they go to a meetup when they don't have a job in tech, and that is, how do I get that first job in tech? And I heard the exact same answer over and over again, like it was a broken record. And they were like, oh man, that first job, woo, that's the hardest one. But if you get that first job, every job after that will be easier and easier. To someone like me, that is the worst thing that you could ever tell me. Because not only did you demotivate and demoralize me and made me question what I started doing and studying for the last 6 months, but you've given me 0 action items to work on. I have no idea how to get from A to B, from X to Y. You've given me nothing. So I then realized in that moment that everyone that came to this meetup asking that exact same question got that exact same answer. And I said, I need to make a change. So I go home, and mind you, I'm still working in the gas station frying that chicken. And I create a LinkedIn profile. And I start cold calling and cold messaging hiring managers, decision makers for businesses and recruiters. And I start creating this hiring network. And in the beginning, they're like, who the hell is this Danny guy? And I'm like, oh, I love Danny. I knew Danny from the beginning. But what I realized was, in all of my expertise in gas stations, that these amazing people that work in these offices will never meet me in their life if they tell me no. If they tell me no for reaching out, there's 0 chances of us ever meeting, because what are the likelihood of a gas station guy walking into a Fortune 500 office building? None. So I said, what do I have to lose? Why not throw myself out there? Why not get that rejection and go on to the next person? There's no way for me to face that. So I start creating this hiring network, and I'm very methodical about the people that I hire. But I realized something as I'm going through this pursuit, that I'm able to do this, and not, others are feeling too scared to make that movement. And so what I say is, I will start helping out in meetups, and I use meetups not as my goal, but as my tool to help others reach their goal in tech. And it was the vessel, it was the movement, it was the car to get them from A to B. And so I start showing off developers in non-traditional ways. And my theory was, if I show off a developer in a non-traditional way, because I don't like filling out applications. To this day, I don't fill out an application. When I want a job, I leverage my network to get a job. And so what I ended up doing in this process was, I was showing these developers off to my network, and I'd start hearing back from people like, oh man, someone saw me on your profile. It's so weird. I was like, oh, it's strange, right? But I remember I helped that first person get the job in tech, and I was with them literally when they got their offer letter. He was so happy. He literally had tears in his eyes. He was so happy. And I realized in that moment that nothing mattered more to him than making this dream come to life after chasing it for 18 months. And nothing mattered more to me in that moment than sharing that moment with him. So I went from helping one person to 10, 10 to 20, 20 became 40, and 40 became over 70 developers that have helped land their first jobs in tech. And that should give you a basic idea of who I am. And this is probably a long intro to, hey, how you doing? But we're here at this point.
No, that was a great intro.
Yeah, if you want, you can search me on YouTube, and I've spoken at companies and conferences all over, and they've got talks up there, and you can get a long talk into who I am and things that I'm doing.
Also, could you give us a brief intro to what LaunchCode is?
Yes, so LaunchCode is a program that I went through, and for a long time, I actually resented them for being in Memphis, and I'll tell you why. We were the first cohort that they ever did outside of a hub city. They dropped the ball in a big way, and they know it. And we, out of a starting class of almost 170 students, like 20 graduated. But they learned a lot in that process. And so now we're doing another cohort in Arkansas that is a non-hub city for them. and we're hitting the ground running. I specifically reached out to them and asked to be a part of this to make sure that this goes well. And already we're on track for having the highest graduation rate they've ever had. And I know we're going to make some amazing things happen. And something that I was telling them the first day we had class, I'm not there for the money. The money is a joke. It's basically like volunteering, but essentially what the pay breaks down to is $60 a week, right? So you need a special kind of individual in that role of a TA or a teacher because the pay is not there. And so if I'm not there for the money and I'm not there to become, it's not going to make me famous, right? Like those 100 people, 200 people that we're teaching, it's not going to change my life. Like on Twitter, for example, I'm almost at 50,000. On LinkedIn, it's over 10,000. I'm not getting that from there, right? So why am I there? And it's because I genuinely love everyone in that program. I'm a very firm believer that positive impact creates more positive impact. If I help you get to where you're going, can you imagine all the people you'll bring along the way? No one travels alone. But what's more important than that is I love telling people that I don't know that I love them, because if we can hate something without having a necessarily strong reason for it, then I can love something for the same reason. And that is all I'm doing this for. And I used to be obsessed. I used to be like sickly obsessed with how can I make the most money? How can I work the most hours? How can I bring home the biggest paycheck? I am no longer obsessed with trying to make the most money. The money comes and goes. I don't care about it. I don't care about being a rich man on my deathbed. I am obsessed with trying to leave the world in a little bit better shape than the way I found it. And that is why I love the LaunchCode program, because LaunchCode is a free bootcamp where we take you in, we train you in a stack that makes sense, that is actually proven to basically land you a job. And we try to guide you the entire way. And on top of that, we are literally like the biggest support that you could possibly have. And we're cheering you on the whole way. And we're very specific because after the program, we have something called Liftoff, which is an optional, I think it's like 2 or 3 months, where we're basically doing interview prep, mock interview prep, creating a capstone project that you could show off in an interview, getting you ready and trying to put you in front of employers. And they specifically search out employers, and they will deny certain employers that they don't think would be a thriving environment for the students to grow in. So that is something that aligns not only with my goals in life, but with goals of the world. Like, how can we specifically help people grow and reach that next level? And the way that we're going to do that is by positive impact, by putting you in a situation where you're gaining the resources to learn and grow.
Sweet. Awesome.
That
Hey,
is
Brady,
so
you
cool.
want to Shall we
Yeah.
get into the questions?
Yeah. And here, before I start, I'm going to post this one more time because I know it gets easily lost track of. And just in case anybody's new and doesn't have all of the chat history to look back at, that is the Slido link. That's the best place to post questions for us to get to. And all right, we can get it started. So how do you maintain your positivity and motivation through all the hard parts of learning to code and finding a job? Because you clearly do it.
So I've realized that in every single situation that you have in life, you can either find the solution or you can find the excuse, and both normally take the equal amount of work. I can either be miserable about what I'm getting involved in, or I can find something that I can thrive in. And even for everyone in this room, my goal after this is not for you to survive in whatever you're doing. I don't care about you surviving. I want you to thrive. I want you to hit that next level. That's the only reason why I do this. If I thought for half a second that I was coming in here and talking to people that were going to waste this opportunity, I wouldn't have taken it. I'm not getting a dime to be here, right? I get paid to go speak at places and they'll pay me well. I'm not here for that money. I'm here because I literally want to see you hit that next level, thrive and hit and keep growing. And my hope with that is when you hit the exact point that you're trying to reach, you're going to go back and help somebody else do it as well. That's the only thing I'm getting out of this. And that is what I sincerely hope. So if I'm a very big believer in every time we help someone, we're creating a ripple. And that ripple, if you've ever seen a ripple like in water, like it keeps spreading, it gets a little bit bigger, gets a little bit bigger. And if we keep making enough ripples, what ends up happening is that that shaking creates a wave. That is how we create the wave of change that we want to see. Helping one person is also, it feels great. But my purpose, my goals have purpose, and that purpose is a lot larger than that small feat. I need to create a big change for me to be content of what I'm trying to do. And that is why I do that. That is why I see the positivity, for example, because I can easily be miserable about this. I could be miserable about the fact that I was earning no money for a long period of time. I could be miserable about the fact that for a long time my family was getting less than they deserved. Or I can find the way to create the skill set. Your skills are your ATM. So I can find the way to create my ATM and produce my income and produce my money and produce my change, or I can just be mad about it.
Well said. Yeah, I don't have the same enthusiasm in my words, but that's absolutely why I do this also. You know, people helped me along the way, and I absolutely want to pay this forward. I know Sam is the same. So
that's what made me fall in love with tech. Like anywhere you look in the world, there are some people that want to help, but the communities are so fantastic. And like once you get involved with a good community, it's like, oh, like that's as good as gold. And Memphis has a couple good communities, one of which is a group called Code Connector, which is a great group. And I was a leader with them. That were the first group that I led with. And we did some great things. And now I branched off to do my own group, which is GDG Memphis. We're backed by Google, so it's Google Developers Group Memphis. And the reason why I even agreed to do it with them, I specifically told them, my goal is to bring tangible, valuable resources to our community. Will you be willing to do that? And Google, without blinking an eye, is like, that is what we do. And I was like, there we go. Let's do this.
All right, I'm going to move along. This next question is, where would you go to find good job listings if you were going to apply for a job? This person is searching through Indeed, and it feels like it's all staffing companies.
Mm-hmm. So Indeed is a great place. That is pretty much where most of the jobs are just going to be. And you will have to sift through the crap. Like, it's just what it is. But the other one is LinkedIn. 9 times out of 10. And this is my intro to networking, if you will. 9 times out of 10, you will be able to see the hiring manager that placed the listing for the job. This is a secret I'm giving you. That hiring manager is going to get thousands of applicants to that job. It's just a fact. You're not the only junior developer that's trying to find a job right now. There's tons of them. My inbox is filled with them. When they get those thousands of applications, it's going to go through an ATS software that is looking for certain buzzwords, keywords to hit on. So if your resume, if you didn't tailor it to that job listing, you're probably not going to hit those keywords and you're going to get thrown out. But let's just say you make it through, right? You're now competing with, let's say, 50% of the applicants. So let's say we got 1,000 applicants, 50% got thrown out, we got 500 left. You need to stand out in front of 500 people. That's a tall order, right? Now, I'm not saying don't apply to jobs. Absolutely do that. But what I do is, instead of going through all that and filling out an application for every single time and creating a resume to tailor the job listing, I read the job listing and then I message the hiring manager directly on LinkedIn. And I say, I see that you posted for this job. Here are 3 reasons why you and I need to have a conversation, A, B, and C. I look forward to talking to you. When they reply, they're like, that is very interesting. You just piqued my curiosity. Let's set up a time for a call. And just that quickly, I got into interview 1 before anybody else did. You have the ability to fill out applications, do that. But also go a step further, make sure your LinkedIn is good, but reach out that way. I have 4 rules to landing a job in tech. First one, you have to have a very good LinkedIn. If you need help with that, I have a very good LinkedIn course it's on my YouTube channel, completely free. I put it out there. I don't really promote YouTube like that, but I put it on there because I wanted to make sure it was free for everyone to get access to. And I literally went over, I think it was like 40 plus LinkedIn profiles with actual hiring managers and showed them what they look for when they're looking for applicants. You will never find a greater resource if you're trying to get a job besides that. I mean, within a week, I was literally getting screenshots from people saying my views went up 750%. Within a week, within 2 weeks, I literally had messages from people saying they landed interviews. The thing is, most of you, I'm not going to say all because I don't know you, but most probably have the qualifications for a lot of these jobs. The problem is you're letting opportunity to walk past you and you just don't know how to stick your arm out to stop them. A strong LinkedIn profile is the very first step to do that. The second thing you need to land a job in tech is a good portfolio site. It doesn't need to be technical, but it does need to be appealing to the eye. And let me tell you why. 99% of hiring managers have never touched a line of code in their life, and they will never touch a line of code in their life. They have been given a job description that they don't know much about, but they know someone has to check off these boxes. When they go to a website that is actually visually appealing, they, on a certain subliminal level, they feel like, oh, I can trust this site. A site that they can trust is a site they pass on to the manager. That's where step number 3 comes in. You need to have strong portfolio items. These are where you shine. This is where you're showing your command of the language and your technical expertise. The managers are going to check through your projects. They're going to see what you did. They're not going to check through all your projects. Like, it's just not going to happen. But they may click on 1 or 2, and you need that code to be strong. Only put projects that you feel stand out for you. Last item you need for a job is a resume. There's no way around it. We just did a resume workshop the other day, and I'm probably going to do another one in the future. But a resume, it's what you're going to apply with, but it's also the thing that you hand over in an interview. So you need that. So if you have those 4 things, you've exponentially increased your position and job ability to land a job in tech.
That's some awesome advice. One more thing that a lot of our past guests have recommended is AngelList. So as if you're looking to apply for a job
Isn't that mainly
listing
like
board.
startups and things like that?
Yeah.
That will probably be valuable in like coastal cities. I think in like middle America, that's not where we thrive for the most part.
Yeah, that's probably true. There's probably a lot more
Yeah.
Startups on the coastal
Yeah.
cities. That may be
Yeah, for
changing
us,
now with everybody like leaving California or talking about leaving California. So it
yeah, a
may
lot of
be
people
like
have.
switching the game and like bringing more companies to the middle of America. I myself am thinking about moving to Tulsa. I applied to Tulsa remote. I never been to Tulsa in my life, so it would be an adventure if I go.
Yeah. I mean, you could always come to Memphis. When I showed up to Memphis, I was wearing a size medium shirt. It's not medium anymore. We got the best barbecue around, but we'll put some meat on you. But,
Okay, I'll put it
honestly,
on my list.
there you go. But we're growing in the tech area in a big way. I'm trying to help bring as much change there as possible. I'm actually currently organizing the very first ever Southern Dev Fest. And our goal with that is we literally are leveraging communities from Texas to North Carolina to Florida and all the states in between to highlight and show that there is a growing and incredible tech sector in these states. And you should think that the South has some great tech. You don't just need to think about coastal cities as a solution. We've got some very viable solutions here, and they're more economically friendly as opposed to going to Seattle or LA or a place like that.
Yeah, the coastal cities, very expensive cost of
Yeah.
living. That's one
Like
of the
Memphis, we have
reasons I'm looking to leave.
Memphis, we have some of the lowest cost of living in the country. So you can live like a king here for a fraction of what you would spend in other place
Yeah.
like LA. And on top of that, like you can literally make your money grow in a huge way here compared to anywhere else. That's why I'm a huge proponent for Memphis. We have some of the lowest cost of living in the country. We also have some of the lowest cost of earners. That is why a lot of my specific things that I'm trying to do are targeting these areas, because I want to help someone who's like, we have an area in particular where their average annual household income is $18,000 per household annually. If I can take one of these people, give them the resources, give them the courses, give them the community to support them, give them the mentorship that they need, and we help them land a job making 80 grand a year, they're now generating 4.5 times the average household income. But if I can get 20 people from the same area, I just changed the neighborhood. Now the schools are benefiting because we just changed the tax bracket, so the kids are benefiting. Not only that, we're deterring gun violence, drug violence, and gang violence, but we're also removing the number one reason for divorce in these communities, financial issues. Now we're helping the families thrive and grow. But the best thing about it is they're spending that money in their local economy, creating jobs in those areas instead of moving out. Most people, when they're happy in the area, they're not leaving it just because they're making more money. They're spending it there. They're shopping more. They're spending more money on their kids, buying better clothes. But if you're only making 18 grand, there's no way you can provide for your kids in a way that's giving them extra. Like, there's no soccer practice. There's no basketball practice. It's like, go to the park because it's free and try to do something there. But think about it. Where's all the bad influences for the most part hanging out at that same park? So how do you leverage that? So now once you start making more money, now you're into basketball classes at a nicer area, or maybe football practice, or maybe, you know, tennis classes, or whatever it may be, but you're spending it where the jobs need to be created the most.
Yeah, I think that's the whole purpose of the Tulsa remote program that I applied to. They're just trying to bring more remote workers. They're trying to bring a community and then like just bring that whole vibe to the city.
There you go.
So yeah, I put the link in the chat if anybody's interested. They pay you $10,000 to move to Tulsa. So if anybody wants to check that out.
Oh, yes, I should say, since our program is in Northwest Arkansas is pretty good too. Walmart and all those companies out there have just started offices there and hiring way more tech and bringing in a lot of things. And since LaunchCode is there, I got to promote that a little bit. Northwest Arkansas.
I'll put that on my list too.
There you go.
Just started checking out other cities. So far, I went to Denver and Cheyenne. So I got a lot more places to check out.
Denver's cool. It's a growing sector in a huge way, and like
I like
ton of jobs are popping up.
It's
if you like cold, I just don't
though.
like cold. See, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and like ever since dealing with the snows every single year, I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. Like, I'm not for snow anymore. And Memphis, like, we get snow like every decade or half a decade, so I'm cool with that. Like, I'll deal with it whenever it comes, and when it comes, like, it shuts everything down, so you're just gonna stay home anyway. But yeah, and it's like half an inch will shut down a city, or a quarter of an inch, the whole city shut. It's not like we're getting tons of snow. It's flurries, but people freak out.
Here, I'm going to post also, if you don't mind, your YouTube channel.
Sure.
You had mentioned all those awesome resources on there.
Yeah, I got breakdancing videos on. No, it's just all tech.
Dang it. All right. Well, now you know what kind of video to make next.
That's it. That's exactly what we're going to do.
All right. So this next question here is, what materials and resources did you use to supplement your education?
That's a very good question. I wonder if someone that knows me or seen me speak before has asked that. But I have 3 rules when it comes to becoming a developer fast. ABL, ABB, CCC. ABL, ABB, CCC. Always be learning. Always be building. Code. Always be learning. Learn through multiple methods and mediums, because no 2 teachers teach the same. You can learn the same subject from 2 different people and get different perspectives and learn different things. ABB, always be building. Build. In tutorials, nothing breaks. In real life, everything breaks. A simple background red could break a website, you know? So build. Building makes your concepts permanent. CCC, code. Let those fingers dance on the keyboard. There's no shortcut to success in tech. The only way you're going to get there is by putting your fingers on those keys and letting them tap dance around and make something. I don't care if you make something big. I don't care if you make something small. Make something. But the biggest thing is face those errors. I know it's daunting when you have a problem. I know when things go off the rails that you want to find a solution very quickly. Face the error. Don't just rush to get help. If you're stuck on it too long, sure, get help. But face that error. You will learn more facing that error than any tutorial could ever teach you. That is where the real learning happens. That is why people get stuck in like tutorial purgatory or tutorial hell. Like, they can't make anything without a tutorial. Just make something. Make whatever. I don't care if it's big or small. Try to make it without a tutorial. You're gonna struggle. It's gonna be hell. But I guarantee you, making that button that changes the background of a website will make you so excited. And you know, here's the thing about programming, right? Programming is a sometimes a very lonely field. That is why you need to find meetups and communities, because I can make a website that has like the craziest back-end logic. Like I've made some algorithms that do some intense stuff. And then my front end is as basic as all hell. And I go show it to my wife that knows nothing about tech. And she's like, oh, that looks ugly. Like, no, it's not supposed to be pretty. It's not supposed to be pretty. It just does a lot of cool stuff. No, but I'd change the color. Like, no, you're not getting this. It's just, that's the nature of this field. So when you're at a meetup like JDHH or GDG Memphis, we know what you went through. So we sympathize. We're like, oh man, that algorithm must have took like 2 weeks to figure out. And you're like, yeah. But I am a firm believer in learning through multiple methods and mediums. So when I was learning, I first started with Free Code Camp. And if anyone asks me where to start, that is the very first place I say. And here's why. I don't care if you want to learn backend, mobile, whatever, start on Free Code Camp or a site like it. Because it's hard when you ask someone that never coded a day in their life, like, what do you want to make? And they don't know what backend is. They don't know what front end is. They don't know what mobile is. They just know like, oh, mobile's on a phone. That's it. They don't know about PWAs. They don't know about React Native apps. They don't know about that. But if now I tell everyone the exact same thing, start on Free Code Camp. And within a month, you're going to learn very basics of HTML, CSS, and the basics of JavaScript. Education becomes a window you can peer through. And even if it's not JavaScript, you have a very, at least low level understanding of what everything is doing now. Now you can make the determination of, well, I really enjoyed making that site look good, or I really enjoy the problem solving aspect. I don't really care about the beautification of something. Like me, I'm full stack. I'll work front and back. I don't necessarily care about the beautification. I enjoy the problem solving. I enjoy taking a very difficult problem, breaking it down and solving it. So for me, I enjoy working on the back end, but I can work on the front end if that's what the task requires. But the only way you're going to learn that is actually doing something related to it. And now you can figure out where you want to be. So start on Free Code Camp. And then when you're building something, use blog articles, use YouTube. I don't necessarily follow tutorials for the most part. I'm a very big believer in, I'm going to start building something. And when it doesn't do what I want it to do, I will research it and figure out how to make it do what I want it to do. And then that is when each movement is compounded and I keep growing. And that's, for me, the fastest way to learn. You can follow a course that will take you like 9 months or whatever, but I really feel like that is where I get my most valuable learning, and it's the most fastest way to where I want to be.
I like that perspective. I think if I have tried to follow courses and stuff, and I find myself getting bored sometimes, but doing the opposite, doing what we were saying, where you wait to dig into the topic for when you actually need it. That's a good way to really be invested in what you're learning and not get bored and stay with it.
Oh yeah. Because you know what's crazy to me, and I talk about this a lot, like people treat Udemy courses like Pokemon, like I got to catch them all. And what's crazy is I've yet to be in an interview where one of the questions were, hey, how many Udemy courses do you own? No one cares how many Udemy courses you own. What they do care about is the projects you complete. If you've got projects, people care about that. No one cares if you have 5 Udemy courses or 500. I would rather you take that money you would spend on that 500, just spend it on one and force yourself to finish it, even if you get bored. And now you've taken $5,000 and only spent $10. And now you have $4,990 you can invest back into yourself and somewhere else.
Excellent. Okay, so I know you were talking about using your network instead of going to apply for jobs. How do you leverage your networks to get the jobs? And who do you reach out to? What do you say?
Everybody. Like, again, it comes back to, are you methodical about the people you're adding to your network and your connections? Or are you one of those kinds of people like connect? And now you've got business development managers that don't do nothing for your life. You've got people that work in sales that don't do nothing for your life. You got people that work in dry cleaners that don't do nothing for your life. Like, your preparation will make way for your destination. Simple as that. Prepare to be where you're going to be, and you will be there. And you know, it's a great example of this. I don't know why I just thought about this, but when I started tweeting on Twitter, I've only started like being active on Twitter in like March. I had 300 followers. And I started tweeting stuff, the same kind of stuff I tweet now. And people that knew me were like, oh man, like, you think you're some big shot? Like, what is the stuff you're tweeting? But from March to April 1st, I even took a screenshot and I shared it with some friends. April 1st, I had 1,000 followers. And I kept tweeting the same stuff. I knew where I was going. I was like, I'm going to go to this location no matter what, and I'm going to make this happen. April 1st to May 1st, I had 14,000 followers. From May 1st to June 1st, I had 28,000 followers. From June 1st to July 1st, just those 3 months. And at the end of July, I had, 38,000 followers? So I saw where I was going. I didn't care that someone's like, man, what are you doing? Why are you caring about that? Like, here's a big thing. There are 7 billion people on this planet. It is impossible that every single one of them are going to like you or think that you add value to the table. I just need one to fall in love with me and give me the opportunity that I need. That's it. So if 100 tell me I'm stupid, 101 may love me. That is all that matters. Let the naysayers say whatever they want. Just know that as long as you add value to a conversation, you will perceive value and you will get value back. So with that, I forgot the original question now. I got into that tangent. I was like, damn, I know it had something to do with where I was going.
If you were looking for a job from people in
right,
your
how
network.
I leverage the network.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's exactly right. So when I'm very methodical and I perceive and I see where I'm going, I add only people to my network that are people that are like-minded or where I want to be. So if my goal was to be in sales, my entire network would be business people and salespeople. But my goal is to be in tech. So what do they have a purpose being in my network? None. They can't offer me anything. So I have no salespeople in my network, at least when I was trying to break in. And it was only developers, hiring managers, decision makers for businesses. I was very specific about that. And so what I would do to start creating these connections, I'd just literally send them a message. I'd check out their profile, see something of value. And I would say, oh, like, I see that you volunteer at the soup kitchen. I was just there like a couple of weeks ago volunteering. That's awesome. Now you've got a connection that actually matters. And that's another thing why if you know me, I always talk about volunteering. Volunteering is the only thing that you give out that costs you nothing and you gain back something, whether it's life experience, whether it's through helping people, or whether it's networking. Because most of the time, the people that volunteer are people that have successful careers. You don't see the homeless dude down the street volunteering. You see the person with a 6-figure job volunteering. You see the person that's got everything together volunteering. Those are the people that volunteer. So why not go volunteer and just make the connection? And here's the other thing. Like-minded people hang out with like-minded people. That is why I'm so like, you should hang out or talk to hiring managers, because hiring managers know other hiring managers. And I've seen this more often than not, where like I'll message someone and be like, yo, I'm learning Python. Because at that time I was learning Python. And they're like, well, we don't have any Python positions. Well, Sally, the hiring manager, now goes have lunch with Michael, the hiring manager. And they're like, oh, Michael talks about like, yeah, I got to find a Python guy. Memphis doesn't really have Python. I'm like, oh, well, I just talked to this guy, Danny, who knows about Python. You guys should connect on LinkedIn. And boom, just like that. People that are like-minded will hang out with other like-minded individuals. So make sure that's how you're leveraging your network. You're creating those connections. And then I will message people like that and say, hey, I'm looking for this job. But remember, always go with purpose. If you send someone a message that says, hey, how are you? 1,000% you're going to get ghosted. I ghost them all the time too. Like I literally have, what is it, about 80,000 people checking me out a day. I get 16 million views a month. I get on average on Twitter 500 replies and messages a day. If you're not coming with purpose, I have no time to spare to have a conversation with you. But if you're not coming to that same person that you're reaching out to, saying, hey, I see you work at, well, for an example, in Memphis, there's a company called St. Jude, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So there's a lot of developers that work there. So I remember I would message people at St. Jude saying, oh, I really like St. Jude and I love the things that they're doing. I was curious, what is the tech stack there? And what do you find something to be very difficult about what you're doing? And then LinkedIn is this weird place where, like, if I were to message you that on Facebook, like, hey, I found out you work at St. Jude, why don't you tell me about it? They're like, get away, you freak. But LinkedIn, they're like, oh, I got employee of the month and I did this project and come check out my portfolio here and my boss loves me and this is my parking spot and this is my path. Like they'll tell you everything about what they do at work. It's the dynamic of that network. That is why I tell people all the time, like really emphasize and leverage LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is where money lives. Twitter is where opportunities and things like that are. I get a lot of opportunities from Twitter, but all my main money opportunities genuinely come from LinkedIn. And another thing, and keep this with you, I don't care if you have like a huge job in tech. Keep your network alive, because I see it more times than not. I'll talk to people like, oh, I don't need LinkedIn. I have a job right now. Well, what ends up happening is when you lose that job or you lose that opportunity, you have to rebuild your network because you let it die. Well, now you're spending 2 months rebuilding that. So just because you did not actively post on LinkedIn, you don't have to post on LinkedIn every day. Post once a week or something. If you're not keeping that network alive, you're already 2 months behind everybody else. And now instead of being unemployed for a couple of weeks, you're unemployed for several months. So once you build that network, understand that you've built something that people would literally pay you for. Keep it alive and thriving and growing. Like I just hit a milestone the other day on Twitter and I posted it. I finally hit 10,000 connections. I've been on LinkedIn actively for several years now and I just hit that. But the difference is they're not random connections. They're all valuable connections for the most part. So if I've got 10,000 people that are valuable, that's worth more than having 1 million followers that are just in random areas. Like that 10,000 will produce more for me than anything else. And I shared it in my Discord the other day. Like I get chased. I get offers all the time, not come interview for us, but come work for us. Like I'm skipping that long process of other people and I can now literally start working with them, have a casual conversation, get in there. That is what you want. You don't want a network that is going to say, I'm glad that you're here, or that's a funny meme. No, post content, create that network, and you'll go places.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. I was blown away. I started posting little videos about once a week on YouTube, like posting them onto LinkedIn, and got multiple job offers just because of that, because I'm like top of people's mind. People are liking what I'm saying and stuff. And it's like, man, that was the easiest offer I've ever had.
100%. Like, and here's the thing about LinkedIn. You know, when you go on social media, like you'll post something that you did great, and a place like Twitter, like, oh, humble brag, flexing, you're bragging. Twitter, like LinkedIn is a place like that is where you toot your own horn. Like if you ever needed a place for that, that is what you do. LinkedIn is absolutely the highlight of what you've accomplished. That is where you brag about yourself. That is where you get people. You want to pique interest, or what I call the hook. Once you hook them, now you use that interview. Now you use that conversation you have afterwards to reel them in. Use that hook to get everyone that you need to go in after you. Talk about yourself. Praise yourself. That is where you do it. Show off those amazing projects. But don't use LinkedIn like Twitter where it's like 100 days of code. That is not that place. Don't post your struggles because the perception is, oh, they're still learning. They're not ready. You don't want to create doubt. Don't allow yourself to create any doubt for yourself. That is where you walk in like, I'm the solution to your problem. Simple as that. And what I don't know if this is a question or not, but I'll go into this real fast. A lot of people I see go into these interviews, and what I end up coaching people the most on interviews, they walk in with a begging mindset. Please give me a chance. I just need a chance. Give me a chance. I just need a chance to show you what I can do. When you do that, haven't you noticed when you're on the side of the road and like a homeless person comes up to you begging for money? We don't want to feel the way we feel, but don't you kind of look away or you don't cast your gaze? It's a biological reaction. It's not like you're not choosing to do that. It's just in that moment. That's what's happening when you're walking into this interview, begging for that chance. Don't beg. You are valuable. Walk into that interview with a value mindset. I am valuable. I am going to bring value to this conversation. I will bring value to this team. If you bring value, they will bring a checkbook. It's as simple as that. No company in the history of the world has ever turned down an opportunity to make money. Walk in knowing that you are valuable, and you will walk out with that perception of value, and you will get a phone call for them to ascertain and obtain your value.
That's an awesome mindset shift. Did you, when you were going for your first job in tech, did you have some specifics on what sort of value you brought? I mean, I can see how much enthusiasm you have. Was it about, did you have transferable skills from your job? Like,
there ain't no transferable skill from frying chicken. I don't. It's not there.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that though. Like,
my fingers battered chicken now. Dancing on the keyboard. I don't know, but
I picture you probably had a lot of stuff to organize. There's probably, like, hearing how you can talk and relate to people, you probably had some sort of customer facing, like communication skills.
So here's what I'll say. I don't feel like I had anything really transferable from the gas station, but what I did have, here's the thing you have to understand. For a long time in my life, that ceiling was so low, and that is where it was, because I come from a very bad area. I come from a no educational background. I didn't have the things people have, and that's where I was. My wife would tell me for a long time, like, you are better than where you're at. And I said, woman, you crazy, because I have nothing to bring to the table. But she was right. I'll never tell her that. No, she knows she's right all the time. But she was right. I had more to offer than I was allowing myself to offer, but it was because I had that ceiling. Once I knew I was allowed to move that ceiling, nothing in the universe could have stopped me. It was over with at that point. Once I knew that I could enter into tech, I didn't start coding because I was like, oh, I'm going to be a developer. I didn't know that was possible. I just wanted to make a website. I didn't know what that website would be. I didn't know what it was going to be about, but I was going to make a website, and it was going to be so cool that Mark Zuckerberg and everybody was going to look at it. Simple as that. That was my perception at that point. My actual goal was to enter Google. I was like, Google was this illustrious thing that I was like, all right, there has to be a way that once I started learning how to code, I was like, one day, somewhere in the future, I'm going to walk in that building. And I was able to walk in that building, not as someone striving or trying to get a job, but as a speaker to speak to the people there in that building. That for me was a huge moment. But there was no transferable skill. Matter of fact, I turned down 6 jobs before I ended up getting my first job in tech. I had a very clear vision of what I wanted. And it was a situation of, I wasn't going to accept Splenda when I wanted sugar. No substitutions. I wanted one thing, and that was it. And I'll tell you 2 stories. I remember I started learning JavaScript after like the first meetup I went to, and I realized like I didn't know anything. And I started applying to jobs, and I got a call back. And I was so fresh into vanilla JS. Like I didn't know anything besides what I just started learning. I didn't even get to arrays yet, I don't think. Like, it was super, super, super early. And I remember I get this phone call, and I'm so hyped. Like, I'm like, this is it. Getting a job in what is it, like 4 weeks? That no brainer, like, done. This is it. And I remember they call me, and they're like, okay, so like, do you know JavaScript? I was like, yeah, I know JavaScript. I'm learning JavaScript. I've made some websites in JavaScript. I know JavaScript. And like, well, do you know React? And I was like, yeah, I know how to React. I know happy, sad, mad. What are you talking about? And I was so fresh into JavaScript that I didn't know what a framework was. So they're asking about a framework to work in. And I'm like, why would they ask me how I react to situations? It seems so weird. But it was great because it showed me what I lacked. Like, I could instantly hear the disappointment in their voice. And I was like, oh, I messed this up. Like, this hour phone call is going to be cut down to 5 minutes. So like, I figured it out. But it got me on track to where I wanted to go. And I remember I turned down several jobs. I literally stopped the interview halfway in the middle of one interview because I realized, oh, this isn't for me. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. I value both. So we're going to cut this here. Like, we're not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to accept it. And I remember when I stopped it halfway through, like, what? And I was like, yeah, this is not it. And so I left. And I remember there was one job that I wanted. I wanted this bad. Like, I wanted it with my soul, with my being. I did everything right. I made it to the final interview. Everything was good. All signs showed where I was going. I remember I even told my wife, I was like, that's it. We've got it. Like, this is over with. I've done everything right. And I get a phone call, and I didn't make it. And I remember I was so sick. I laid in bed. I was so sick. And I remember I kind of said in that moment, I was like, you know what? If the only company that actually emulates what I want doesn't want me, then I don't want this. And I laid in bed, and it was the best thing that never happened. And I'll tell you why. Less than a week and a half later, I found my dream company. They checked all the boxes. And when I tell you, knowing now, obviously hindsight is 2020, but knowing now, if I accepted that job, I never would have even thought about the job I have now. If I accepted that, it probably would have been one of the worst mistakes of my life. And it's crazy to say that because they were so incredible. But the things that this company offers now pales in comparison to what they offered. But I didn't know so much was available to me at that stage in my life. Best thing that never happened. I'm a very firm believer that sometimes the universe hears things, sees things, witnesses things, and will make moves for you that you won't make. Sometimes we have to have that setback to have that launching pad. Don't question why something is happening. Just grow through that moment. And that was a growing experience for me, but it was God's honest truth, probably the best thing that ever happened.
Wow. Here, I'm gonna just go into the next question. um, this person is wondering, should they focus on data structures and algorithms? They know that they would like to work as a front-end engineer.
Yeah. Sad part of this field is you need to know how to do an algorithm to fix a button. Simple as that. So unfortunately, that is the sad truth, and you're going to have to know it, because I can tell you I've done more HackerRank assessments, whiteboard coding, and things like that in order to break in the field, and there's just no way around it. And every company, even if it's Jimmy's insurance company down the street, thinks they're the next Google. So they try to do these crazy interviews to find developers, and it sucks for some people that literally have the skills to do what they need to do, but they lack the ability to pass a test. Like, I know some incredible developers. One developer that I know who's beyond phenomenal in my area. He's honestly an inspiration to me, and he struggles on passing the assessment. But if you checked out his GitHub, like, his GitHub is #goals. Like, you will see more green than you ever seen in your life. He's made applications. He's done freelance work. He's made apps that, like, literally they use in like museums and stuff. He's made this, but because he isn't passing a HackerRank assessment, people are doubting his ability. When I know for a fact he's as incredible as they come. So it's just something that you're going to have to really power through, learn, expose yourself to, and learn. No way around it, unfortunately.
And then here's another question for, like, applying to jobs again. If a job listing is asking for years of experience with whatever language, do you only count professional experience?
I don't even look at that. Listen, every job offer that I got wanted a degree and several years of experience, and I had neither. Apply to that job. If you match 50% of the requirements, apply. If you know the main languages, apply. Worst case scenario, they say no. Simple as that. Best case scenario, they say yes. Or at the very least, you have a conversation where you can prove and show your value. Simple as that. I don't look at it. Unless they specifically say we need a senior developer with 10 years of experience, like, and they're allocating like what they need done, I don't care.
Yep, I'm gonna lump this next one into the previous answer. Should I apply for jobs that require 2 or more years of experience?
Yep.
Yes.
The job I have now, they wanted 6 years of experience. They obviously didn't get that with me, but they wanted that. I remember one job at a very prestigious company, they wanted 8 years of experience, and I still applied. And I remember, so Indeed, they have like those pre-check questions where it's like, do you have like a degree, or do you have this? And I realized, like, if you answer in the negative, they never even see that you applied. So I just started saying yes. And I've definitely pissed off a lot of people. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, they're not happy that you do that. But I remember one job that I got into the final interview for, and that's when I realized, oh, this isn't for me, because there was no, one of my main requirements that I needed was growth. I've heard way too many times from way too many developers that they get pigeonholed where they can't grow, like the ceiling is too low. And the only way they find that growth is by going to another company. I didn't want that. And so I remember when they told, like, I was talking to the developers on the team, and they're like, yeah, most of us, like, you're here, you don't really, there's no promotions, like, you just kind of go with the flow. And if you want to get a raise, you go somewhere else. I was like, oh, this isn't for me. But I remember, like, they wanted all that experience. And I remember when they called me for the interview, the hiring manager's like, do you have a degree? And I was like, oh, no. Like, but you said you had a degree on the form. I was like, yeah, but if I said no, we wouldn't be talking right now. I really think it would be great if we had a conversation, because what I lack in sheer intellect, I make up for with, like, really good looks. But I also make up for with my ability to walk into any situation and say, I don't know the answer, but I'm willing to absorb everything like a sponge. And if you're willing to give me the time and attention, I'm willing to pay attention and make sure we both grow together. And it worked.
That's awesome. And a different perspective on why someone should apply for a job if they're saying they need like 2 or more years of experience. I also did that, and I had the mindset that they would train me if I didn't have what they needed. But it turned out there was a job that I was 100% qualified for that I ended up taking. I didn't recognize the job title, but the recruiter got back to me and was able to see that I had a bunch of the skills and qualities of somebody they were looking for that team. So yeah, you're never going to put your hat in the ring if you don't apply. All right. Here's the next question. What would you say is the most effective social media networking platform? I assume in the context of getting a job.
LinkedIn and Twitter. LinkedIn and Twitter. And I'll tell you why. I was anti-social media for the longest time. And it actually took someone showing me, like physically showing me, that Twitter had all these amazing tech profiles that shared ideas, that were talking and growing. And I was like, okay, I'm in it for that, because I don't care about what someone ate for dinner. Like, that doesn't interest me. Like, and I think social media can be phenomenal as long as you follow the right people. It can definitely kill your morale, or it can increase it. And so I tell people all the time, I try to make sure I keep the positive side of the internet around me, because I've seen what bad people can do to other people. Like, there are people that literally thrive on making others miserable. Simple as that. And the other thing too, honest to God, like, a lot of these, there's a ton of accounts that will do nothing but spew politics. And it's like, I get politics on my homepage, I get politics on my TV, I get politics on my phone. Like, where's the mental break? Where can I at least give myself an hour a day, 30 minutes a day, where it's like, don't bombard me with something and let me thrive and breathe and live. So I try not to follow accounts like that. And I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on, if I'm being completely honest. I literally group the world in 2 categories: assholes and non-assholes. And if you're in one category, I want nothing to do with you. And if you're in the other category, I absolutely love you. So as long as you're on the right side of the thing, then I'm happy. But Twitter is phenomenal for networking, because you can reach out to some really incredible developers and get insight. But more so, there's a thing, especially if you're a junior, you probably don't know it, developer advocates, or evangelists, tech evangelists, or DevRels. And what they do is, for specific languages and technologies, they're the spokesperson for that language. Like, they go around to conferences, they speak about it, they discuss like how to do things, and you can find a lot of their conference talks online. But if I'm working in something, for example, I've become friends with the speaker Debbie O'Brien, who is from Ireland, and she now lives in Spain, but she is the dev advocate for Nuxt.js. As that's something that I'm currently playing with and learning. I was having trouble with something, I shot her a tweet, she shot it right back to me with the answer. So who else is going to know more about that than someone in that ecosystem? They're all there on Twitter. So you can surround yourself with those developers in the languages that you want to know, whether it's React, whether it's Vue, whatever it may be, or whether it's Java or Python. You can find developers specifically around that are working in it, and you can get help in that. Like, for example, my stack currently is Angular and Java. At work, we're completely rewriting our entire code base into React and Go. So now I'm having to learn React and Go. I was having a React problem the other day, and I literally typed it into Twitter. Within minutes, I had the answer from several developers on how to solve my problem. Like, where else can you go and get that kind of feedback? So I highly recommend Twitter for that. But LinkedIn is where you're going to make your bread and butter money networks. Like, people on LinkedIn are there because they're trying to make money moves happen. Simple as that. Twitter is where people have time to waste. So if I want something money related, I know exactly where I'm going. Like, these are people that when they commit to something, they're serious. What I found is when I advertise my meetups, if I post it on LinkedIn, anyone that RSVPs from LinkedIn is showing up. Anyone that RSVPs from Twitter, there's like a 50-50 shot if they actually come. LinkedIn, they're like, no, I'm serious about whatever I'm doing here. Twitter is, if I got the time, I come through. But LinkedIn, they're like, they're making the calendar notification. They're making sure they got that block of time available. That is what the more serious people that you're going to interact with, that's where they'll be. But Twitter is definitely great to help build that network out.
Yeah, I see Sam has dropped his dev list on Twitter, people he follows in the community.
I better be on that list, Sam. I'm looking right now.
Pressure's on.
Not yet.
Oh, see, look at that. Look at that. Unbelievable.
It takes years to get on this list.
I almost hit end meeting for all right now. No.
All right. Here's a question. What would you suggest for someone who went through a boot camp and still feels their primary language, JavaScript, is too weak to even try challenge problems?
So you've identified your problem. You know where your weakness is. What can I tell you that you don't already know that you should do? Like, if I tell you I can't make an apple pie, what would your solution be? Go learn how to make the apple pie. Go actually try and different recipes and make that happen. So if you know that you can't do an algorithm problem or an actual problem, then what do you think you should do? Should you just waste another day just thinking like, man, I wish I can get better at this? Or do we go on HackerRank and start trying the easiest problems and then start slowly leveling up? The only way you're going to get better is by literally doing. There's no other way to it. I can literally speak all day long, but unless you type, nothing's changing. I can literally spew information to you, and until you, haven't you ever watched a video tutorial and you're like, oh, I got this. And then you go to your editor and you're just staring and you're like, shit, I don't got this. And then you go back to that tutorial. Same concept here. Unless you actually do as you learn nothing.
Yeah, lots and lots of practice. It's totally fine to do lots of yeah, people are talking about LeetCode in the chat.
Yeah,
like
HackerRank, LeetCode, and if you're a really, really beginner, one great one that I found that has easier problems is Code Wars. I think it's Code Wars. They have like, and you can choose the difficulty. You can start at, it's called Qs, KYU, and you can select like the easiest levels, like 8, and then as you feel confident in 8, and there's solutions. So it's like, okay, try it first. And more than likely in the beginning, you're gonna be like, yeah, I don't know it. But at least try, attempt something, even if it's completely wrong. You know what I do whenever I do tutorials or live streams with people, I will literally pause in the middle and just say, let your brain work for a second. Just try to come up with the solution, even if it's wrong, because what happens is your brain starts going through these motions and you're trying to piece things together like a puzzle. Even if it's wrong, just try and then move on to the solution and start breaking it down line by line. And then here's the key, even though you know the solution, still do it again with the solution. Because unless you type it, it doesn't stick. So, and one of my habits, and you'll see I literally always have a notebook next to me. I'm a big believer in writing things down. And anytime I have like a really hard problem, I write it out. And like, that's how like I start breaking it down, and like I'll start making trees like, okay, here's my root problem. Here's what I needed to do. Here's another solution, and so far and so forth. Like, and I'll break it down to the lowest level. Then I'm like, okay, I can start here and then add to this step and then add to this step. Like, don't ever approach a website like I need a website. You don't. What you really need is, I need a nav bar. I need this section here for text. I need an image here. Well, I need when they scroll for this action to happen. And I need a footer. And each step now creates your website. So go from the smallest step first and keep progressing. Coding is not about big wins. Coding is about the very consistent small win. It's a culmination of those small wins. Don't look for the big win. It's not there. I'm telling you, I swear to God, I'll bet money on it. It's not there. No one ever goes to sleep knowing Vanilla.js and they woke up knowing React. Like, it's a very consistent progression. So be consistent with your efforts and you will get consistent results.
Yeah, I love that you talked about the small wins. I always like to remind people, keep track in any way you possibly can. Keep track of those small wins, because I don't think that it ever feels like you have learned a lot.
Yeah.
And that question kind of brought up some imposter syndrome vibes. So if you can have a list of like, I learned how to make a loop, I learned how to do a recursive problem challenge, like keep track of the little things. And then as you feel like you don't know anything, you can look at the list and be like, well, I know something.
And just to touch on that, like if you've never had imposter syndrome, I will guarantee you, you will. And I have yet to meet a professional developer that hasn't. And one thing that helps me out with that, and especially for you right now, we as humans and as society, we're always focused on, we're so go, 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 go. Like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? That we never look at where we are and where we've been. There was a moment where you didn't know HTML and now you do. There was a moment where CSS was this big, huge thing and now you know it. JavaScript was daunting. There's no way I'm going to learn this. And now you got it. You are killing it. But you need to take a moment to look at what you've actually done. Like, take a moment, seriously. What have you done in the last 6 months that 6 months ago you didn't think you were going to be at? You're literally in the middle of what you used to look forward to. Think about that, recognize it, and hold on to that, because that is how you're going to keep progressing. Like, I constantly get imposter syndrome. Matter of fact, I get it before every code review. I don't know why. And it doesn't matter who's reviewing my code. I'm like, oh, this is the day they find out. Like, I lose my job. Simple as that. Like, code reviews for me are like the scariest thing in the world. And basically, I've reached this point in my life now where I've become friends with imposter syndrome. I know it's there. It knows I'm here. We don't get in each other's ways. I know it exists. And that is the key. You need to know where it derives from. Like, what's causing you this? And then work backwards. Like, I'm getting it because I'm in this code review. Well, why? Well, I'm afraid that they're going to think my code is crap. Like, well, why? Is your code crap? Because if it is, then let's work on it. If it's not, then know that you should be confident in the scenario, and then you can keep progressing. But imposter syndrome really derives from, and that's when you're going to know it, it's the fear of being outed as a fraud. It is the fear of how you will react in that situation. And it is the fear that you are less than. I am here to tell you that you are not less than, because you wouldn't be in that situation if you were less than. They wouldn't offer you a paycheck if you were less than. They wouldn't have even had a conversation with you if you were less than. No one is like, if people are reviewing your resume, you obviously belong there. If you're creating a profile and you're getting people to talk with you and you're creating a network, you belong there. No one is networking with somebody that doesn't bring value to the table. If you bring value, you belong there. So work on bringing that value and you will negate the rest.
Awesome. Thank you. So this next one is, how do you balance your social life with job searching? The job search itself is a full-time job, and it's difficult to balance with the current job that this person has.
I mean, I think like we need specifics on this. Like, what is your social life? So for me, I'm a very big believer, and this may help some of you, that my goals need to be so big that I get excited by them. So I know for a lot of people, and here's the thing, a lot of people like to have the goal, like, I just need to get a job in tech, right? That is not my goal. It's the vehicle to my goal. My goals are huge. So for me, like, what is your goal? Does your goal have purpose? Does it make you excited? Like, is your goal to get a paycheck? Because I'll be honest, you get a paycheck from anywhere. It's not exciting. It's not motivating. It's not going to keep you driven. Like, I don't believe in motivation. Motivation comes and goes like the wind, but drive is unstoppable, and my drive is unstoppable. So what is your goal? Is your goal to get a paycheck? I don't know if that's going to be something that you really like hold on to, but is your goal, I want to go from living in an apartment in a bad area to having a house in a nice area? Is your goal, I want to provide for my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my husband, my wife, my kids? That is a goal with purpose. Is my goal that I'm tired of driving, riding on the bus or riding on a train, and now I want to own my own car and I want to drive it myself? That is a goal with purpose, and that will make you really chase after it. And so for me, I write my goals down on a little piece of paper. And in between my computer right here and my TV over there, I have this wall, and I place all my goals on my wall. And what happens is when I'm ready to binge watch like 10 episodes on Netflix and I see my goals, I have to face them. And I ask myself, have I done enough to get to my goal? And if the answer is yes, yeah, let's get this binge watching on, right? But if the answer is no, what I may do is, instead of wasting 10 hours right now, I may just watch 2 episodes and then spend the other 8 hours getting to where I want to be. And here's a simple fact. So I wake up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm not saying you have to, it's what I do. And for me, the reason why I do that is my family wakes up at 7. So that gives me 3 hours every single day that I could dedicate to myself. That is my me time. I don't do anything work related in this time. This is me working on my goals, whether it's applying to jobs or whether it's learning something new or whether it's creating something that I want to create. But those 3 hours are Danny time. If you and I are going for the exact same position, let's say we have everything equal, but every single day I spend 3 hours getting better. Eventually that 3 hours develops into 6, develops into 9, it develops into 30, it develops into 3,000. Eventually those hours make me so far apart from you that you can visually see the difference in an interview. So if I'm spending all this time making myself better and the other person against me spending less, of course I'm going to be better. It's math. Like, you can't spend 1,000 hours at something and be terrible at it, right? So if I'm spending 1,000 hours on, let's say, Vue.js, and I want to learn Vue, and you haven't started, of course I'm going to be better. Or let's say I spend 1,000 hours and you spend 5 hours. Like, I'm going to be better. Separate yourself from the pack. But if you dedicate, let's say, just 3 hours, you still have 24 hours in a day. Let's say you work 8 hours. Let's say you spend 5 hours doing something. You just allocated 16 hours right there. So 3 hours for job searching, 5 hours for whatever you want to do, and 8 hours for work. You get your 16, you sleep your 8, you're done for the day. You can have it, but haven't you ever seen those moments where people are like, man, I've been going all day. Like, I've just been going all day. Don't confuse movement with achievement. Just because you're moving, are you actually utilizing your time in the most valuable way that you can? Can I take 8 hours and just really condense it down to 3 hours of killing it and 5 hours of effing off? Like, is that what my movement is? But I feel like I've been doing a lot. So instead of wasting that entire day, could I have just wasted a section of that day and then got on with the rest of it? Don't confuse movement with achievement. Don't make sure whatever time that you're using, when it's work time, it's work time. So this is my work table. I have another desk out there where I like watching Netflix and stuff like that. But mentally, it's almost like a trigger that when I sit here, stuff is getting done. We're not playing around. Stuff is getting done. If I sit here for an hour, I know that hour I killed everything that I was supposed to kill. But if I feel like I'm slacking off, almost immediately I'll walk to the other desk because it's all linked. Everything's on the cloud. I can open up here. Whatever's here, I can open it up there. But if I sit here, I know for a fact I'm killing whatever's in front of me. Make sure your work area is your work area and not your play area. If you mix the two, don't be shocked if you find out during work time you're really on YouTube. Simple as that.
All right. This next one is, with the situation we have now with COVID and everything going remote, are companies hesitating on hiring junior devs? What's the situation you have seen?
I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely harder, but for a variety of reasons. Number one, a lot of these companies are fully remote, so they never had the infrastructure for this before. Like a lot of companies are still figuring this stuff out. They just don't know it. It's as simple as that. The other thing is 30 million Americans lost their jobs at the beginning of COVID. There were a lot of developers that lost their jobs depending on which industry they were in. So if you're a senior developer that lost your job and you can't find a job as a senior developer, you start taking lower roles just to get yourself back in there, especially when the numbers are so high. So you can't fault them too hard when you find more experienced developers now going for junior roles just to get into a company. Like it's the economy right now. Like there's no way around it. But one thing I kind of want to put in perspective for a lot of people here. I don't know how many people in here got a degree, that don't got a degree, that went to a boot camp. Just if you were to go get a degree, it would take you 4 years, right? After you get the degree, you realize, man, they didn't teach me how to code. So now you're spending 6 more months to at least learn the basics of learning how to code, right? So let's say 4.5, 5 years it takes you to finally be job ready and you start getting jobs. I won't say all the time, but most of the time, someone that graduates from college is not getting a job out of college. They're getting a job after a little bit of delay time. If you spent 6 months learning how to code and you're like, man, this is taking forever. Did it really though? Like if you spent a year, is that really a long time in the grand scheme of things? Like, is it really though? Like, I think that's one problem with people that learn how to code on their own or come from a boot camp. We're like, man, we should have a job in 90 days. They said 3 months to become a full stack developer. Like, I hate those things. Like, haven't you ever seen that show 90 Day Fiance? They didn't find a fiance in 90 days. You're going to find a 6-figure job in 90 days? Like, is that what we're doing now? Keep that in perspective. Like, what is your definition of like, this is taking forever? Is it 90 days? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Like when you were striving to get that bachelor's degree and you were at year 2, were you like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't get a job yet? No, you didn't have the degree. Make sure if it takes out, perfect example. I was talking to someone just a couple of days ago. They're like, man, I've been trying to break into tech for 6 years. Still haven't got my first job. I was like, holy shit. Like we weren't connected on LinkedIn, right? He replied to one of my comments. I was like, 6 years? I was like, you know what? I don't normally do this because especially you're not even located near me. I was like, connect with me. Let's get in the DMs. Let's talk this out. If you spent 6 years, like we need to make something happen. And so I asked him, I was like, my first 2 questions are, show me your portfolio site and show me some projects that you've done. Like, what do we got? And he was like, oh, I don't have a portfolio site up and I don't have, some good projects, but like, I know this stuff. Like, how do you know this stuff? Like, I have a job for you right now. Show me what you can do. Can you show me? No, you haven't done nothing. Your portfolio site is your business card in tech. Like, this is what you're showing to people. You don't have it. Of course, it's taking you 6 years. You don't have projects to show off. Of course, it's taking you 6 years. If it's taking you 6 years, this is back to the earlier point. He's confused movement with achievement. He spent 6 years moving in a circle instead of moving in a line. At least if you're moving from A to B, you're going to reach B, right? But if you keep moving in a circle, you're not going nowhere. So if it's taking you 3 years, all right, what are we at? What do we have? What have we done? What are we doing? Have we created our network yet? Have we created a portfolio site yet? Like, who are we reaching out to? How many jobs a day are you applying to? How many conversations are you having? Are you even talking to developers that work in these companies that can introduce you as a referral? Of course, a developer wants referrals. They get paid for that. So what are you doing to put yourself out there? And if the answer is nothing, well, fix it. A lot of the time we know our answer to our problem and we think it's some magical solution that somebody else knows. So we want to avoid what we need to do. And it's kind of similar to that question that you just asked me earlier. I am bad at algorithms. What should I do? Work on the algorithm. That's what you should do. I have a bad portfolio site. Well, fix it. Like, you know what you need to do, so go do it. Like, what do you expect me to tell you? Oh, the portfolio, you don't need that. Oh, I got a magical connection that you can go through here where you will never need that. No, you know what you need to do. It's the same thing that the other person needed. And it's the same thing that I had to do. It's the same thing that Sam had to do. Same thing that Brady had to do. It's the same thing that David had to do. Do it. Like, here, this is the only field in the world where everything is laid out readily on Google. Go knock yourself out. Like, it's not like I have some secret formula to get in tech that nobody else knows. There's absolutely nothing that I do that Kristen can't do, that Shion can't do, that Thor can't do, that Ryan can't do, that Emily can't do, that Miguel can't do. Every single thing that I do on my every daily life is what you can do. Some people get mad when I'm like, oh, you can absolutely learn the code. I've had people tell me, don't tell people that they can learn the code. I absolutely believe every single person can learn the code. I have spoken at prisons where prisoners are learning how to code and they don't have access to internet because of laws, and they're learning how to code on pencil and paper, and then they type it into an editor that is not connected to the internet. If they can learn to code with the limited resources, imagine what you can do with your luxurious resources that you have in front of you. You're not a part of this call unless you have some kick-ass resources. Tap into it. Everyone can learn how to code. Not everyone's going to work at Google, but you can definitely learn enough to work at Jimmy's insurance company down the street and make a great living.
You got people pumped over here.
It's what I do.
Somebody, David's lifting weights. You got him pumped. But we are at 1:30. How much time do you got, Danny?
I'm here for you. So you just tell me if you want to wrap it up, we wrap it up. If you want to keep going, I'll keep talking till 8 p.m. if you want me to. It's up to you. I may have to get some more water if we do that, but yeah.
Brady, what do you think? Should we keep going with questions, or?
I personally am excited for this next question, but we could maybe call it after that. And I don't know if you want to go get water, we could take a break.
No, I'm good. That was a joke.
Okay.
We're so good.
So this one was, if you're looking for a mentor, do you know what would be the best way to find a mentor?
You know, I literally was just on a podcast about this whole subject, and you can look that up. It's called Whiskey Wednesday if you want to watch the full panel discussion I was part of. But the thing with mentorship is, I think a lot of people have like this convoluted idea that a mentor is someone that's like, hey, every week we're meeting at this time and this time and this time, and no matter what, we're meeting at this session and you're going to learn something valuable. I have so many mentors that don't know they're my mentor. Like, a mentor doesn't need to specifically come up to you. Like, for example, when you're in a relationship, you're like, hey, are we boyfriend, girlfriend right now? Like, is that what we're doing? That doesn't need to be the case for mentorship. I have mentors that don't know they're my mentor, where I'll approach them and say, hey, I need feedback on this idea. Can you give me some feedback? And through that casual conversation, I'm gaining all this knowledge. Where it's hard for people, especially when I started doing Twitter, my goal was like, I just want to help people. Now, with as many people as I get, many messages as I get, there's no way that I can do one-on-one mentorship. But if now we're talking through tweets and you're tweeting an interesting idea at me and I tweet back and we go back and forth, you just gain mentorship through that. It doesn't need to be this like very fixated and labeled thing. It just needs to be, how are you getting that feedback? How are you gaining your insight into the industry? What's a good sounding board? And one of the best ways to do that is honestly being a part of a meetup and community. Like, when you go to a meetup, you have literally, let's say we're 50 people here. You have 50 people that are all learning something together, that some may have the positions in the field, some may not. And this is a great way to get some feedback that will help you out. Like, where else are you going to get that many people together that are passionate about the same things that you're passionate about, that came here, even if you're an introvert, even if it's scared to talk to new people, they came here with the exact same intention you have right now. I want to meet people. I want to learn something. I want to talk to people. Why not do it? Like, how much easier could it be? Like, besides going to McDonald's, like, hey, I like McDonald's. Yeah, we're in the same fucking building. Of course we like McDonald's, right? Like, same thing here. Like, I want to meet other developers. Well, hell, I'm in a meetup. Of course I want to meet other developers too. Let's talk. Why not link, communicate, and get to know each other? Follow each other on Twitter. Follow each other on LinkedIn. Follow each other on Tinder if that's your thing. But like, now you have that ability to get to know people in a better way. Why not do that? That is why I'm such a huge advocate for meetups. Meetups genuinely changed my life. That is the only reason why I do them. if you would have told me in the beginning, like, I'm going to have a meetup community, oh, no way. It's so much headache. It's so much work, especially in-person meetups. I got to beg companies to become sponsors and pay for pizza and drinks. And I got to find a venue that's willing to host all these people. It's a lot of work. I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather just go home and watch some Netflix. Like, to have a 2-hour meetup is probably, 15 hours, 20 hours of planning, right? I could use that 20 hours for something else. Like, if you want to have a big meetup, like right now I'm organizing my second conference ever, right? I organized my first conference. It was a Memphis Dev Fest, first major tech conference we ever had. I remember when I was planning it, I knew nothing. I just had this goal. It was on my wall of goals. I need to have a tech conference. I just want, like, that's on my kick the bucket thing. Like, when I die, I can say, at least I brought this much value to our community, right? And I approached like over 20 organizers that had like experience in the field. And this was like, the goal was to have that conference in like June. And I found a venue for it. It was like a university that had like a huge auditorium, right? And I approached like all these, it was right before COVID became like a thing. Like, I think it was like a murmur in like China, but no one was talking about it in like America and no one, like, everybody was going to meetups. I know March 12th was the last in-person meetup I had, but I was talking to like over 20 organizers to help me out around March. And that's when like COVID was serious, and like everybody was like, no, like, you can't do it. It's not going to happen. It's going to fail. It's not going to be the thing. And I was gutted. I was like, damn, like I really wanted to do this thing. And it was about 3 weeks later, one person finally came back and was like, you know what? If you really want to do this, I'll go ahead and donate some of my time. And I looked up at him and I was like, oh, did you think this wasn't going to happen? This was still going to happen. I've already got the speakers lined up. I've got the software lined up. I've got everything done. I've got the RSVPs going. I've got it all done. I've made some errors along this way that I quickly learned from, but I was looking for that help to avoid those errors. But I'm already done. And I loved seeing all of their names pop up in the chat where we had over 3,000 people attend this conference. So yes, you can do whatever you want. You can make anything happen, whatever the way you want. Just keep that mind and focus where you need to keep it. And now with the Southern Dev Fest, it's the same thing. We're literally leveraging communities from Texas to the East Coast and everywhere in between to literally bring like-minded people together that they can grow with, network with, talk with, and make amazing things happen with. But it's also to show that Southern tech is viable. We've got great solutions here, and we've got great companies that are hiring. But again, if you're in a like-minded area, you're going to hang out with like-minded people. Just go in with that like mind.
Wonderful. And since I don't think we dropped the link to your meetup, could we do that?
Yeah, I've got several meetups coming up real soon. We just had one the other day. It was on financial literacy, and I do that meetup like every 4 or 5 months. We haven't been able to do it though before COVID, and the reason for that is a lot of people, especially when they land that first job in tech, you're making way more money than you were making beforehand. And just because you make more doesn't mean you save more. And what ends up happening is if you don't know how money works, you can't make it work for you. And a great example of that is I've noticed in upper class families, that's something that they talk about within the family. They have investments and things like that. When you're making 18 grand a year, you don't have an investment, right? And I remember I was telling my mother in passing one day, like, oh, I'm investing in my 401k at work. And she's like, 401k? That's gambling. Like, I love my mother, but when you don't know what you don't know. Simple as that. So you can't make money expand and grow unless you know how to make it work. So that meetup was phenomenal. I uploaded the entire meetup on my YouTube channel too, so you can watch that, because I think the amount of valuable information in there is paramount. And you will never find anything more valuable than something like that, where you can actually learn how to go and at least make 5% increases in your yearly savings. Because one thing that people don't realize is inflation grows yearly. $1 saved today is 98 cents in a year from now. It's not worth the same dollar, even though physically you may think it is. It doesn't have the same buying power. So unless you're having your money at least beat inflation, you're losing money every year you save. So that was one of the big things that we covered in that meetup. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that will help people out. But that's my meetup, GDG Memphis. You are absolutely welcome to all of our meetups. It doesn't matter if you're not from Memphis. You can be a Memphian for the day. We'll make you an honorary Memphian. And you can absolutely be a part of our community.
Very cool. Yeah, we can end it here. I can stop recording, and that way people have some, if anyone wants to. Here we go. Where's my recording button? Here we go. Okay. Then they can introduce themselves and we can chat a little bit.